Most people will never rise. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Weakness is not born, it's chosen. And it's chosen every single day, in every moment of hesitation, every second spent chasing comfort, every excuse disguised as a reason. It's not a matter of fate. It's a matter of refusal. You were not made to follow. You were not made to kneel to the false idols of distraction, self-pity, or the opinions of the crowd. But the truth is, most will. They'll hand their power over with a smile, just to be liked, just to stay comfortable, just to avoid the fire that forges greatness. Look around you. The masses don't think, they react. They don't build, they scroll. They don't confront reality, they escape it. And every time you choose the easier path, the smoother option, the route without resistance, a piece of you dies. Weakness is spiritual decay. And like rust, it spreads slowly, quietly, until the structure can no longer bear its own weight. Then it collapses. Why do most people stay weak? Because strength is earned through confrontation, and most fear the truth more than they fear failure. They fear what it would mean to look in the mirror and see the difference between who they are and who they could be. You see, weakness isn't just the absence of muscle. It's the absence of will. It's when your comfort means more to you than your character. It's when you start measuring yourself by how little pain you can avoid rather than how much pressure you can withstand. History doesn't remember the comfortable. It remembers the ruthless, the clear-minded, the committed, the few who chose to suffer deliberately so they could rise permanently. It remembers Spartans, not spectators, Napoleon, not the nameless. Every empire was built by those who embraced discomfort like a weapon. Not because they enjoyed the pain, but because they knew weakness lives where comfort dominates. You want power? You want purpose? Then stop asking for a life without friction. Because strength doesn't grow in still water, it grows in the current. In the chaos, in the fire. Most people stay weak because they never step into the furnace. They read about power, but never take the blows that forge it. They quote Sun Tzu, but can't handle a real confrontation. They admire Alexander, but avoid even their own shadow. Understand this. The battlefield of life does not reward the passive. It rewards the prepared, the disciplined, the dangerous. And if that word, dangerous, unsettles you, it's because you've been trained to fear your own power. You've been conditioned to be polite when the world is not, to be soft when reality is hard, to be agreeable when what you really need is edge. Weakness begins in the mind, in the quiet agreement you make with mediocrity, that you'll settle for less because more would cost too much. But the truth is, it's the settling that costs the most. Most people stay weak because they've never defined strength for themselves. They follow rules written by people who are just as lost, just as broken, just as scared, and so they chase status instead of self-respect. They pursue validation instead of vision. They build lives that look powerful from the outside and feel empty on the inside. Because deep down, they know, a man can buy a kingdom of things and still be a slave to fear. A woman can collect compliments and still be hollow with self-doubt. Power is not appearance. Power is presence. The ancient Stoics knew this. They didn't scream for attention, they moved in silence. They didn't perform, they prepared. And when the storm came, they were still, because they had faced storms before. But today, we live in a world addicted to noise, where everyone speaks, but no one listens, where everyone moves, but few move with purpose, where everyone wants to lead, but no one wants to master themselves first. Self-mastery. That's the hidden blade. That's the weapon the weak never wield. Because to master yourself is to declare war on everything soft and scared inside you. It's to wake up and confront your laziness, your insecurity, your lies. It's to stop blaming, stop escaping, stop hiding behind false humility and admit, you were made for more, and you're the one holding yourself back. But most people won't do that, because weakness loves to disguise itself as virtue. It wears masks like being realistic or not rocking the boat. It tells you that boldness is arrogance, that ambition is selfishness, that intensity is toxic. But the truth is, those lies are designed to keep you tame, to keep you dependent, to keep you weak, because a strong person can't be controlled. A strong person doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't bend to the winds of every opinion. A strong person becomes the wind. And that's terrifying to a world that feeds on predictability. To be strong in a world of weakness is to be a threat. And that is exactly what you must become. Not because you seek destruction, but because you refuse submission. You don't rise by asking for permission. You rise by building the capacity to walk alone if you must. To walk through rejection, silence, and failure, and emerge sharper, stronger, hungrier. This is why most people stay weak. Because they break at the first sign of pressure. Because they expect results without pain. Because they think success is about luck or talent, not resilience and strategy. But hear this. If you want a different life, you must become a different person. You must evolve, not react. Strategize, not complain. Discipline your desires, or they will discipline you through regret. The power you seek is already inside you. But it is buried, under years of hesitation, under layers of fear, under the comfort you keep choosing. And until you go to war with that part of yourself, you will remain another forgettable name in the crowd. They told you to be humble. But they never told you how destructive false humility is. They never told you that shrinking yourself doesn't help anyone rise. That suppressing your greatness only makes the weak feel safe. Understand this. There is a difference between humility and hiding. The world has enough people pretending to be small. It needs more people willing to claim their power, unapologetically. The ones who rise, they don't wait to be chosen. They choose themselves. Again, and again, and again. Until the world has no choice but to respond. But most people, they wait. For the green light, for the perfect moment, for the applause that only comes after the performance. They never realize, life isn't a stage waiting for you to be invited. It's a battlefield, and either you step onto it ready to dominate, or you're used as someone else's stepping stone. Look at history. Look at the architects of power. Cleopatra didn't beg for permission, she moved kingdoms with her presence. Machiavelli didn't apologize for speaking truth, he weaponized it. They understood the game, and played to win. Not for vanity, but for impact. Because the strong understand something the weak never will. You cannot change the world if you fear standing out from it. Most people stay weak because they cling to the crowd. They feed on belonging. They mistake the comfort of similarity for the power of authenticity. But the truth is, no legend ever emerged by blending in. If you want to rise, you must be willing to be misunderstood, to be mocked, to be judged, to be alone, because power lives in the shadows of solitude, where distractions die, and vision sharpens, where the voice of the world fades, and the voice inside finally speaks. That voice, your inner commander, it's been buried, not silenced, just smothered by noise, fear, and the soft seduction of ease. But it is still there, waiting for you to stop negotiating with your potential, waiting for you to stop breaking promises to yourself, waiting for you to reclaim command. Most people stay weak because they have no inner standard. They are ruled by external validation, not internal law. They do only what gets noticed, only what feels good, only what fits the narrative of the weak. But the greats, they move in silence. They do the work when no one is watching. They plant roots while the rest chase applause. They are governed by a personal code, higher than law, stronger than fear. It is not discipline alone. It is sacred. It is a vow, to themselves, that mediocrity is death and compromise is betrayal. You see, power is not gained, it is unleashed, and the leash is internal. Your mind is the gatekeeper. And weakness, true weakness, is when that gate is wide open to every opinion, every temptation, every excuse. You must close that gate and fortify it with clarity, with vision, with rules, not society's rules, yours. What will you tolerate? What will you no longer excuse? What behavior in yourself will trigger immediate war? These are the boundaries that separate kings from cattle. These are the questions that break chains. Because most people stay weak for one simple reason. They've never declared war on themselves. They negotiate with their doubts. They shake hands with their fears. They bargain with their dreams like beggars, instead of taking what is already theirs. You want strength? Then make a decision, not a wish, not a goal, a decision, one that slices through your past, one that cuts off every escape route, one that says, I don't care how I feel, I care what I do. Because feelings change, but character endures. And that's the problem with most people. They live by emotion instead of mission. They let the winds of mood dictate the direction of their life. And then they wonder why they're lost. But you have another choice. To rise above that. To become sovereign over yourself. To lead your own inner army with ruthless clarity. And once you do that, you'll see what they can't. You'll see that the battlefield isn't out there. It never was. It's within. And once you dominate there, the external world becomes easy. So while the weak wait for a better mood, a better opportunity, a better time, you move, you act, you build. You build habits that make discipline automatic. You build systems that make excellence sustainable. You build relationships that sharpen your vision, not blur it. And brick by brick, you construct a life no one can take from you. Because it was built on fire. It was built in the dark. It was built with your own blood and hunger. Most people will never know this. They'll stay on the surface. They'll build facades instead of foundations. And then cry when it all collapses. But you've seen behind the curtain now. And there is no going back. The path forward is not paved in comfort. It's carved through resistance. And the stronger you get, the more resistance you invite. That's the law, not a punishment, a signal. A confirmation that you're no longer crawling with the crowd. You're rising alone. Most people will never understand this. Because they mistake resistance for rejection. They think difficulty means detour. But the strong, they see it for what it is. Proof that the territory is valuable. Weakness turns back. Power presses forward. Look at Alexander the Great. He didn't see impossible terrain. He saw opportunity no one else had the courage to claim. His enemies saw mountains. He saw thrones. And that's the critical shift. Not in strength, in sight. Most people never sharpen their vision. They never ask, what am I really looking at? They see problems as barriers instead of gates. They see critics as enemies instead of mirrors. They see discomfort as a warning instead of a weapon. But once your vision matures, everything changes. You begin to see what others don't. You see that pain is a teacher. That doubt is a doorway. That every setback is an invitation to elevate. And that's when your rise becomes unstoppable. Not because the world got easier, but because you got clearer. Clarity is lethal. It cuts through distractions. It silences the noise. It reveals the truth most are too afraid to face. That life is war. And the greatest battle is always with the self. The weak avoid this war. They disguise avoidance as peace. But avoidance is not peace, it's decay. Rot masked as rest. Delay disguised as strategy. And that's the sickness most people live in. They rot in place. Smiling. Posting. Pretending. But the soul knows. The soul keeps score. And no amount of external validation can silence the voice that whispers. You were meant for more, and you know it. So you have a choice. Betray the world, or betray yourself. Because you cannot serve both. You cannot rise and remain liked. You cannot lead and be accepted by those who refuse to move. The cost of power is separation. And most people won't pay it. They fear being alone. But what they should fear is staying small. They fear silence. But what they should fear is the noise of conformity. Drowning out the sound of their destiny. Listen closely. The ones who changed the world. They walked alone first. They bled in private. They trained in shadows. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the cold hours before dawn. Miyamoto Musashi, mastering his blade in solitude. Frederick Douglass, teaching himself to read by stealing scraps of knowledge. These were not men of convenience. They were men of conviction. And that is the dividing line. Most people stay weak because they confuse desire with commitment. They want results, but refuse the rituals. They crave success, but reject structure. The strong? They build around structure. They worship structure. Because they know, without structure, greatness is just noise, impulse, fireworks without fire. And so they build their days like warriors. They guard their mornings like fortresses. They train their minds like assassins. They see the mission in everything. From the food they eat to the words they speak to the silence they protect. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Because power is not a moment. It is a lifestyle. But most will never live this way. Because it demands too much. Too much presence. Too much honesty. Too much responsibility. They'll say it's too intense. Too extreme. Too serious. But tell me this. Is mediocrity not more extreme? Is wasting decades not more serious? Is dying with regret not more intense? You weren't built to survive. You were built to create. To lead. To command. And every moment you spend shrinking, you betray the blueprint. So rise. Even when it's dark. especially when it's dark, because that's when your power is forged. The ones who win, they don't wait to feel ready. They train themselves to act ready. They rehearse greatness in the silence. They script destiny with discipline. They become dangerous, not to the world, but to their limitations. This is how you rise. Not by wishing, not by waiting, but by declaring war on the version of you that tolerates less. There's a moment in every warrior's path when the real enemy reveals itself. Not the critics, not the competition, but the part of you that negotiates. That soft voice inside that says, "Take it easy today. You've earned a break. You'll start tomorrow." That voice is poison. And the weak, they drink it daily. They call it self-care. They call it balance. They wrap it in modern buzzwords and post about it online. But make no mistake, comfort kills more dreams than failure ever could. It doesn't strike like a blade. It seeps like a gas. You don't even realize it's in the room until it's already robbed you of your fire. And that's why most people stay weak. Because they let comfort write the script of their life. They hand the pen to fear and call the result fate. But you're not here for comfort. You're not here to blend in. You're not here to die with potential still locked inside your bones. You are here to dominate, to build, to become, and that demands a different code. A code of discipline, not temporary motivation, but eternal structure. Not hype, but ritual. See, most people wait to feel inspired. The strong? They design environments where weakness can't survive. They remove triggers. They destroy temptations. They architect days so precise. They don't need to rely on emotion, only execution. Because the truth is simple. You don't need more inspiration. You need fewer distractions. You don't need more motivation. You need more momentum. That's why most people lose. They break the chain. They train on Monday, cheat on Tuesday, restart in 3 weeks, and call it balance. But power doesn't emerge from balance. It erupts from obsession. You want to rise above the crowd? Then stop living like them. Stop consuming what they consume. Stop moving how they move. Stop thinking how they think. Most people wait for clarity before they move. But clarity doesn't come from thought. It comes from motion. You act your way into clarity. You train your way into confidence. You build your way into belief. And that's why most people stay weak. Because they live backwards. They wait for belief before they build. They wait for confidence before they commit. But belief is a result. Confidence is a byproduct. You don't find those things. You earn them. Brick by brick. Rep by rep. Promise by unbreakable promise. And yes, it will be lonely. It will be misunderstood. You will outgrow people. You will be mocked, doubted, attacked. But that is the cost of stepping out of the herd. That is the toll to enter the arena. And it is worth it. Because on the other side of that sacrifice is a version of you that is unshakable. See, strength is not loud. It doesn't boast. It doesn't flaunt. True strength is still. It's the kind of energy that doesn't chase. Because it knows it draws. It doesn't shout. Because it commands. It doesn't react. Because it chooses. And that's the level most will never reach. Because it takes too long. It's not sexy. It's not viral. But it is eternal. It's the strength of a man who wakes up at 4 a.m. Not for a post, but for a purpose. It's the strength of a woman who silences the noise, burns the old story, and builds herself from rubble. Without applause, without pity, without compromise. That is power. And it does not come cheaply. It demands everything, and gives back more than the world ever could. But first, you must stop begging the world to understand you. You must stop needing the approval of those who fear your growth. You must stop apologizing for wanting more. You were not made to explain your greatness to people addicted to mediocrity. You were made to embody it, to radiate it, to live it. And when you do, you won't need to prove anything. Because your energy will speak louder than words ever could. And now, we arrive at the edge of everything. The edge of your excuses. The edge of your fear. The edge of the version of you that was never built to last. You've seen what keeps people weak. You've seen the chains they choose. Comfort, approval, distraction, avoidance. And you've seen what it costs. A life half lived. A potential untouched. A power forever buried. But you are not them. You are not here to remain hidden. You are not here to follow the script. You are here to rewrite it. So let them talk. Let them mock. Let them doubt. While they're busy laughing, you'll be building. While they're addicted to attention, you'll be mastering your silence. While they're chasing what's easy, you'll be choosing what's eternal. Because real power is earned in the dark. When no one sees you. When no one claps. When no one believes. But you move anyway. It's forged in repetition. In the silence of sacrifice. In the furnace of frustration. Where most people quit. But you double down. Understand this. Power doesn't shout. It radiates. It doesn't beg. It attracts. It doesn't react. It orchestrates. And the rare few who understand this, they don't just rise above the crowd. They become untouchable. Because they've mastered the only domain that truly matters. Themselves. Not the market. Not the algorithm. Not the opinions of strangers. But the battlefield within. They've trained their mind to serve their mission. They've trained their habits to match their vision. They've trained their soul to remain unshaken by the storm. And that is the real revolution. Not louder voices. Not bigger platforms. Not prettier masks. But one man, or one woman, who refuses to stay weak. One soul, who declares war on mediocrity. Who burns the backup plan. Who walks away from the herd, and never looks back. That person? They're unstoppable. Because they don't need the world to give them permission. They already gave it to themselves. And now, so must you. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more apologizing for your fire. This world does not need another follower. It needs a force, a storm, a presence, a soul that cannot be silenced. So rise. Rise from your old self. Rise from your delay. Rise from the lies you were sold about who you are and what you're worth. Rise, and become what most never will. Disciplined, strategic, unshakable, free. This is why most people stay weak. But you were made to rise above them. Now move, and never look back.